That was just awesome. Just awesome. So, what have you ever done that was crazy? Just think about it for a minute. Don't all yell at once. That would really be overwhelming. But what have you ever... That would be crazy. What have you ever done that was crazy? So I asked myself this, preparing this talk, that I'm so excited to even go into this topic, being who I am. What have you ever done that's crazy? So I came up with a couple. I went back and I went, so what have I ever... It was an interesting challenge. I was like, wow, trying to figure out, what have I done that was crazy? Because by my standards, a lot does not seem crazy that may seem crazy. So I thought, what did I think might have been crazy? And I thought about when I was in New York as an actor, I would go home. I lived in Philadelphia. I was from Philadelphia. And I would go home to Philly and just, in between jobs, when I was one of those actors that said, I'll never work again, might as well go to Philly and lay around for a while. So I went to Philadelphia, and I'm laying out on the couch with my Aunt Carolyn, who's only 19 years older than me. And she turned to me. We're watching TV. It's 10, 11 o'clock at night. And she turned to me, she goes, I'm bored. And I said, I am too. What should we do? And she said, well, I have your grandmother's mortgage money. And I said, so what should we do with it? She said, let's go to Atlantic City. We could pay her back with our winnings. So we did. So we drove to Atlantic City for an hour and 45 minutes, lost her mortgage money within 20 minutes, and drove back home. And we were not bored. And we weren't bored when we tried to figure out how to find the money to pay her mortgage. So that was one time, and I thought, wow, that was crazy. And yet, was it? It's given us something to talk about. It's not that crazy. Another one that I thought of was when I was only 14 years old, very close to the age my son is, and I was sitting in Father Judge High School, all-boys Catholic suit, the whole deal, sitting there, and there was an announcement on the loudspeaker that said, Nazareth Academy, which is the girls' private academy, Catholic, Nazareth Academy will be holding auditions for Music Man on Sunday. And now I had never done anything like that, and something in me said, I think I'll try out for that. And I remember getting dressed on Sunday night, not telling anyone. I remember coming down the stairs in my suit, like I'd wear a suit to audition for Music Man, but I did, and a trench coat. When you do these crazy things, you remember the things you wore. And I had this long trench coat and a fedora. And at 14, I was 4'10". And I'm coming down the stairs, and my mother's like, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Nazareth Academy to audition for I'm probably just as prissy as that. Going to Nazareth Academy to audition for Music Man. And she went, you don't sing? I said, you never know. And so I went to Nazareth. Walked up to Frankfurt Avenue, got on the 66 bus, sat there in my trench coat and fedora, got to Nazareth Academy, had to walk all the way down there and there's everybody that's been doing this forever, and I'm just sitting there. They call my name, I get up and sang some song, and that was the beginning of where I am now. But that was crazy. That was crazy for a little 14-year-old boy who'd never been that far on Frankfurt Avenue to just go do it. These things inside of you that are crazy when you look back. I thought about when I was doing West Side Story in New York, and I would ride my bike to work through the streets of Manhattan, just zooming in and out of cabs and all the way to the Minskoff Theater. It's amazing to me that I never had an altercation, ever. I just assumed everybody would move, right? But that's crazy. It would be crazy for me now to go to New York, grab a bike, and try to ride from the Upper West Side to Midtown Manhattan. And it's not just because it's crazier now, although it is. Another big one for me was when I left 42nd Street. I was making $3,000 a week in 1984. Yeah, and I was 29 years old. And I could have gotten another year's contract, been raised to $4,500, and I shared this with my Power Decision class. Could have gone to $4,500 a week at that time. But instead, I also got offered to go do the lead in the 5th of July for $145 a week in Southampton, New York. And I chose that because I knew that my tap dancing dames on the dime were kind of over for me. I didn't have passion for it, so I did it. But I can tell you what my father said. What do you think he said to me? You're crazy. You're crazy. Do you know how much a year of $4,500 is? And I was like, yes, I do. Do you know how much 6 weeks of $145 is? Not even the 1 week. Crazy. Did it anyway. But the biggest crazy thing I could think of when I really put my mind to it, I left show business to become a minister. Although Jonathan Frakes said to me a few weeks ago when he was here, he said, "You're not out of show business. What, are you kidding?" Right? Didn't you say that? I said, "Yeah, I left acting." He goes, "No, you didn't." So, but here's the deal. Leaving show business to go into ministry, that actually fits my definition of crazy. Because I looked it up, and the definition of crazy that I like is intensely enthusiastic, passionately excited. So, are you intensely enthusiastic? Are you passionately excited? Are you crazy? Yes. Well, let's see. Let's check to see. Okay, so here's one of the questions. This is one of the lyrics from the song. Beautiful song. When was the last time you had dreams for food? When was the last time your dreams actually fed you? Huh? Or sunset dripping off the thoughts you think. And this is a man who understands this, who wrote these lyrics. Dreams for food, sunset dripping off the thoughts you think. Martin Luther King said, if we have faith, the believer cannot be restrained. When was the last time that you were so crazy about something you could not be restrained? I'll take that like it was yesterday, right? When was the last time you were just so excited, so passionate about something that no one could restrain you from doing it? No one could stop you. They'd have to put a restraining order out on you because you were just so crazy you had to do it. I'm exhausting myself up here. This is great. I think we need more crazy in our lives, do you? I think we need more crazy in our lives. I think we need more intense enthusiasm. I think we need more passionate excitement. I think we need more daringness, yes? Feel crazy for a minute. Just go. I can see those of you that are still sitting still. I think we need more of this. We need more abandon. We need to be more like little children. Last night, my kids wanted to watch a movie for family night. And so they were like, let's watch Big. And I'm like, I've seen Big. I don't need to see Big. But we couldn't find a movie to watch, and it was really getting crazy. No one could agree on a movie. And finally, I acquiesced and said, let's watch Big. Oh my God, was there a movie I needed to see besides Big last night? No! The universe is sometimes calling through your children or whoever, but it's calling to you. So we watched Big, and it's exactly what I'm talking about. A 14-year-old, it's so fascinating at the end of that movie, a 14-year-old who, by the time the end of the movie comes, he's been living in an adult world, and he's just so miserable and uncomfortable because he's doing what we all do, the adults. And then that last scene where Tom Hanks says goodbye to her, and she's sitting there watching him walk away, and then you shoot to her, and then you shoot back to him, and he's walking in the big suit, and it's the little kid, and then you see her face, and you just know that she's going to go live the rest of her life to the best of her ability, never forgetting that moment. And that's what we get to do today. We get to do it. You know, John Livesey sent me an email this week to look at something on TED. You know, one of those 12-minute talks on TED. And I didn't have a chance to do it, which just shows you what I'm talking about. And he even said, you got to watch this, you're going to love this. John, are you here? Yeah. Great. I watched it. And it was a man named Sean Aker, and it's called The Psychology of Happy. And I would suggest you all go to TED today at some point and put his name in, Sean Aker. Just even put in Psychology of Happy, you'll find it. There was a quote that was so pertinent to what I was talking about today, and it's this: normal is the study of the average. What is considered normal is the average. So, very interestingly enough, what he states is that we have spent the last 50 to 100 years teaching an entire civilization to aspire to average. Because if you want to be normal, you have to be average. And average, as he mentioned in his talk, average, the scale of average keeps going down. So we are just getting less and less and less away from what he calls the psychology of happy. Our happiness, our joyousness. And that's what I'm talking about today. So if you continue to aspire to be normal, You are continuing to aspire to be average. How many of us here today want to be average? Is anybody here trying to be average in their life? No. Anybody? Did I miss anybody? No one here is trying to be average, are you? You would be somewhere else right now if you were trying to be average, I would think. Yes? Okay, so no one wants to be average. Are we all agreed on that? Okay, because you know, great Raymond Charles Barker in The Power of Decision said, God never made an average person. Isn't that a great quote? God never made an average person. And my favorite quote, God never made a dull person. And yet, there are just a few of them around. Have you ever like dulled yourself? Have you ever just sat somewhere and just gone, I am just so dull? Right? Who said no? Good for you, Doug. You've bored me. But you know, God never, of course not. Doug LeBeau is many things. Dull is not one of them. God never made a dull person. And then he goes on to write this. To be a dull person in this present world means that you have unconsciously rejected life and the curiosity that attends it. If you are dull, not that you can admit it, but if you're bored, he said something in the chapter 2 about it is just the biggest sin of life is to be bored. How can we be bored in the world we live in right now? So, to be a dull person in the present world means that you have unconsciously rejected life and the curiosity about it. How curious are you about life? How curious are you? How much of life? Oh, there was a great... John Livesey also took us to a museum this week. John is my guru. He took my daughter, he gave her for Christmas a visit to the... what's it called, John? Annenberg Photography Space. How many people have ever been there? You all must go... No one's been there? Okay, a couple of you. You all must go there at some point. It's free. It was spectacular. But there was a moment in this movie we watched where the person said, we spend far too much of our lives seeing everything in a glance and not actually seeing what we're seeing. That you cannot see the world at a glance. And we are the generation of glances. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. But we don't take time to actually take it in, to really take it in. So how curious are you? Are you curious enough to stop and stop racing through your life? Are you curious enough to be crazy enough to slow down in a world that's telling you speed up? Are you crazy enough to not multitask? In a world that is telling you, if you do not know how to multitask, you will fail. You may fail at what they consider the average level of success. And you may succeed at what we consider the understanding of joy and happiness. How about that? So Raymond Charles Barker said, it is the firm conviction of this teaching that every person is a genius in some field of living, if he would only wake up to this fact and act as though it were so. Every person is a genius. There isn't just genius in pockets around the world. There is a genius in every seat in this room that is occupied. Every seat that you are sitting in, there is genius, right? So, we have to wake up to the fact that we are not normal. I think that's what... What? We have to wake up to the fact that we are not normal, nor do we want to be normal. Does anybody here want to be normal? No. Okay, unless normal becomes the truth. What if it were that to be normal was that you knew you were God? What if normal meant I walk the earth in my power? I walk the earth in my creativity. I walk the earth in love at all times. If that's normal, sign me up. Yes? So, there's a lyric in the song that says, maybe I should care more about safety. Right? Maybe I should care more about safety. I can hear you all going, I know where you're going with this. I think he's referring about being safe. Taking life and being safe with it. Right? How many of you play it safe? How safe do you play it with your life? How safe do you play it with your dreams? How safe do you play it with your careers? How safe do you play it with your talents? How safe do you play? I think today's the day we can actually look at ourselves and say, how much safety have I aspired to in these last 5 years, 10 years? In my adulthood. You know, it's so interesting. Watching Big last night, they were sitting at that counter and people were eating, and they were all eating lunch, and the two kids, well, Tom Hanks is the adult, and the kid were eating sundaes, and they're just flinging food everywhere and showing each other their food, and the adults are like, oh my God. When was the last time you had an ice cream sundae and played with it? I'm on Body for Life. I could do it today. One day a week, you can do whatever you want. I think we should be all on Body for Life. I think we should be all be on Happiness for Life. But it shouldn't just be one day a week you get to do it. It's every day of the week. We play it safe. There's a Japanese Zen monk, Suzuki, and he says, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert mind, there are few. Now think about that. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert mind, there are few. Do you know why we play it safe? Because we think we know what we're being safe from. We believe we have tapped into something in our past that says this is no longer safe. Like a child. A child doesn't know not to touch the fire. Until he touches the fire, it burns. Now he knows. Okay, there are things you've done in your life, it hasn't worked out, so you've never gone near that again, like a fire, because it didn't work out then, it's not going to work out now. That's not the way it works, because what we know is that principle is not bound by precedence. Yes? Divine principle, meaning that the God that you are is not bound by anything you may have done stupidly prior to this. Any choice you've made that you may not be so happy with today has no bearing on who you are right now if you stand into the truth that you are God. If you stand into the truth that right here, the pure potentiality of the universe is mine to use, to live, to just allow to move through me. If I know that, principle is not bound by precedence. Yes? Yes. So, normal? Ugh. When was the last time you actually took a risk? I mean a real risk. When was the last time you actually took a risk that you thought you could lose something because of? I know some of you in this room that continue to take risks. But what I also know is that when you take that risk, it's not a risk. You understand that, as I said at the top of this service, everything in my world is for my highest good. And if spirit moves through me, and if a desire comes through me, and an idea comes through me that is only mine, and I have to do it, then I have to do it. There are no risks. God is not about risk. God is not standing somewhere, sitting somewhere saying, don't do this, that's not going to work for you. That's not what happens. That's you doing that to you, me doing that to me. It is time for us to step into our power and say, no, I have this idea because God put this idea in me. And if God put this idea in me, then God put everything necessary for this idea to manifest, to be in me as well. Right? That's where we are. So, E.E. Cummings, once we believe in ourselves, we can risk curiosity. We can risk wonder. We can risk spontaneous delight. When was the last time we had spontaneous delight? Well, yesterday. Once we believe in ourselves, we can risk any experience that reveals the human spirit. And when I read that, I thought, no. We can risk any experience that reveals the spiritual human. Not just the human spirit, but the spiritual human, because you are not just a human being living in a spiritual planet. You are a human spiritual being, a spiritual human being. They are one and the same. They are one and the same thing. And that is something that I am so committed to creating and in my own mind, to knowing for all of us. The lyrics. You can do this. You can do this. You are not a lunatic. You are not a lunatic. Crazy would be changing your mind. Crazy would be leaving it behind. Crazy would be for you to walk out these doors today and forget what you applauded. Because you're not applauding me. I know that. You're applauding what Spirit's telling us today. That I don't have to be normal. I am not average. I refuse to let my past interfere in my present. And I refuse to let a dimmed present create a dimmed future. Or a dull present create a dull future. Because guess what? It will. Your dull self today will show up tomorrow. But if you decide not to be, that's what will show up tomorrow as well. You can do this. We can do this. You are not a lunatic. Crazy would be changing your mind. The title of my talk today, could you imagine if I just started? The title of my talk today was, What Constitutes Crazy? And I asked myself this all week, what constitutes crazy? What is crazy? I mean, really, what is crazy? Who gets to decide what crazy is? We got to stop letting anybody else decide what crazy is. You know, my son showed up at the Christmas caroling with Carmen Miranda fruit on his head. And how many were there? Right? Am I lying? And when he came out of the house, I said, that isn't exactly what I had in mind when I said, get a hat. And he said, I think I look good. And I said, so do I. Have at it. I love the pictures we have from Christmas caroling. He is just hysterical in that hat. And that's not crazy. I hope. It is not crazy. And it's the eyes that see crazy, isn't it? It's my eyes. And why do I decide something's crazy? Because something back here informed me that that's not acceptable behavior. That's crazy. But principle is not bound by precedent. So, are we going to redefine crazy for ourselves or are we not? Yes. Crazy is what I said at the beginning of this. Crazy is allowing inspiration and passion to take over. To let God take over and allow us to be who we're knowing that we can be. You know what is crazy? Living a careful life. Can you just hear the energy in that? Living a careful life. And that's when these lyrics come in. I will wiggle in a straitjacket forever if I try to ignore those voices saying, you can do it, you can do it. So let's get rid of our straitjackets. You know how I feel about being tied down. You know, I don't know you people. Really, really. I will wiggle in a straitjacket forever if I try to ignore those voices saying, you can do it, you can do it. I want to leave you with one sentence that I said earlier. God never made an average person. You and I, we are not average. We are not normal. And that is a very good thing. Because God, through you, as you, is coming up through you saying, everything you want to do, I'll help you do. Every desire you have, every idea you have, I am here to make it happen. I am here to say yes to you. So don't tell me that what you think is a little weird. Weird doesn't play here. Whatever it is that comes through your mind that is fascinating and passionate and you have excitement about, know that it can happen. God never made an average person. God never made a dull person. You are not average. You are not dull. You are God. Namaste.